Good afternoon. Welcome to the second conference, International Conference by MRAI, and the post-lunch session, Spotlight on Battery Recycling. Today's session will be a very balanced session because when it comes to battery, mostly we know the lead-acid battery, which has a simple chemistry, simple recycling, and very well known to everyone. But the new age batteries, which are the EV battery, or you can say lithium batteries, which is also known as a oil of today. So we have three panelists from the lead side and three from the lithium battery recycling side. And I would like to invite my today's panelists. First, Mr. Chen Bin Ling, Asia Editor, Argus Media. Welcome, Mr. Chen. He oversees Argus Metal Step coverage in Asia. He is there in this field since 2001. Graduated from Imperial College of London. Argus Media is a leading independent provider of market intelligence since 1970. The next panelist will be Mr. Ashish Bansal, my colleague at MRAI, Director MRAI, MD Pondoxide Limited, and well-known name in lead recycling in South India. Third is Mr. Pratyush Sinha, Vice President, Loham Clean Tech. Mr. Pratyush is Vice President Special Project at Loham Clean Tech. They are the leading recycler in lithium-ion battery in India. In past, he was running an AI startup, and he is an electrical engineer from IIT Kanpur. Next, Mr. Vinay Sharma, my another colleague, Director MRAI and Director Planet First Green Private Limited, and he is handling GDP International Indian operations. Third, Mr. William Gu, Director Shanghai Metal Market. So SMM is very well-known name in commodity market research, and they are providing data for non-ferrous metal project and industrial players in Financial Institute at global market. The final speaker, Mr. Lee Allen, he is strategic market editor, Scrap Fast Market. So he has 8 years of experience in reporting fast market scrap business. He has appeared at various broadcast media, including Sky News, News, BBC Radio. Welcome, Lee Allen, and my all 6 panelists of the day. So we'll start this session. First, there will be 3 presentations from my colleague, and each one has been given a slot of 10 minutes, wherein the first session from Mr. Chi Hin Ling on the battery recycling, growing demand, supply trends. So, Mr. Chi, stage is yours.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the very welcoming introduction from the theme. So today we're going to talk about EV, or the battery metals in the EV market. I don't think I need to go through too much of Argus. I think my colleague JC this morning has already done you through the round of what is Argus, so we'll just go straight in with EVs and chemistries. EV market, I think unfortunate to say that I have to tell you that the EV market is not going to grow at 200, 300, 400% again. That's what we saw over the past few years or past decade. That's not going to be the case anymore. It's moving to the next stage. It's moving to a more maturing stage of development. Actually, we saw the growth rate for EVs actually grow to about 30% or so in 2023 only, and it's going to further slow down between now and the next decade, 2034. In-house forecast at Argus is that we're putting a number at around 10% growth between now and per year growth between now and 2034, and that would actually get us to about 46 million tons or so of new unit, 46 million units, new units in 2034. And of course, then we look at the EV, and for us, for the metals guys in the room, what does it mean for EVs is, it's a chemistry. We need to look at the chemistries. That's what driving the metals. So as you would expect, that the EV market is very much dominant by China. And in China, the dominant chemistry is the LFP, or the lithium one. So we are naturally expecting that the LFP is going to dominate the market share for the chemistries. That doesn't mean that the NCM are going to die out. It's still going to have a market in Europe and in the US. And the next one that you want to pay attention to is the high manganese one, which is making some inroads in Europe. As I said, EV is going to be the main driver for battery, but then also at the same time that you want to look at industrial growth as well, or the growth from the industrial sector, which means there's a battery storage, etc. You know, with now everyone talking about AI, cloud service, and all that. They need big power to support that, and they need battery storage to power these things. What does it mean for metals then? In short, we need a lot more metals in the battery sector. Nickel, we are going to as well. Lithium, we're going to expecting about growing from about 150,000 tons or so to about 600 something, 700,000 tons or so by 2034. And then manganese as well, we're going to need a lot more. The only thing that is not so much, or the less positive one, is the cobalt one. We're not expecting a massive growth of cobalt. It's going to be more stagnant growth. Metals, so we look at each metals more closely. So lithium, thanks to the ever-growing supply increasing over the past couple of years, substantial increase of supply, we are now in a small surplus, and this surplus is expected to stay until sort of much later in this decade. So we actually expect the first supply deficit for lithium actually to come in 2029. What does it mean for prices, or the prices in the past couple of years, past couple of months or so, is that the strong growth in the supplies make that lithium is a bit oversupplied at the moment, and has naturally driven prices down. And we look at the raw material for lithium, which is the spodumene. We actually see that some of the bigger miners, the Albemarle, Pilbara, MinRes, all these will start auctioning, doing in-house private auctions for their material, and it's showing that they are not happy with the current benchmark of the market, and also, more importantly, they are showing resistance to the power of the Chinese buyers. If you look slightly further downstream into the carbonate and hydroxide market, you see that there's small recovery of prices in China after the Chinese New Year. That's because some of the producers have actually sold their stocks prior to the Chinese New Year, and then came back and find out that they actually need material. So they went into the spot market and picked up some material, and causing that rebound. But that rebound seems to be quite short-lived. We are now under pressure again. Prices have been dipping for the past couple of months, but we expect that in terms of long-term price trend, we still expect to grow, and we still expect that there's going to be a recovery in the mid to long term, thanks to the growth in the EV and battery sector. Cobalt, recycling is key in cobalt. We actually expect, if you look at the cobalt demand, we actually expect cobalt demand to fall until much later on. So we are looking at sort of like 2029, 2030 before demand is going to grow again. And supply or recycling is going to be a key part of supply chain as well. We're actually expecting the recycling rates of cobalt in terms of supply actually to grow quite a bit stronger over the next few years. The hydroxide prices again is dropping, partly or thanks to the high copper prices. The high copper prices means that DRC miners, which produce a copper concentrate, and cobalt is a byproduct. They keep on churning out a lot of copper and lots of cobalt as well in the meantime, and that's actually a lot more than what we need or what the world needs in terms of demand, and is pushing pressure on prices. But actually, one of the interesting things here I want to show you is that If you look at the metal side, if you look at the alloy grade and the chemical grade, alloy grade actually is performing a lot stronger compared to the chemical grade. The alloy grades typically serve the aerospace industry and so on, while the chemical grade is more battery side. And that's because of some producer problem on the alloy grade issue. Nickel, we said that there's going to be increased demand for nickel from the EV sector, but in reality, we have to also pay very much attention to the stainless steel sector. It's still going to be dominant by the stainless steel sector, the demand, but then we're going to see a bit more market share from the EV sector. The sulfate prices, again, is under pressure from China, of the recent slowdown in Chinese production of EVs and also and all that. And there's we have actually seen some of the miner, for example, BHP in Australia and Canada and so on, have actually stopped production or scaled back production because of the weak prices. And what does it mean is that over the past year, but that seems to be a very short-lived again. We actually saw that from the turn of this year, we actually saw that the correlation have dropped to about 60% or so again, which isn't good for some of the Class 2 miners or Class 2 producers in Indonesia. And in terms of that, August we launched the INI, the Indonesian Nickel Index report. I'm not going to go too much into it, but if you're interested, scan the QR code and take a look. Recycling, I've only got about a minute or so on recycling. So recycling is going to be key. It's going to be a key swing supplier, as we have said. We actually see the recycling rates in terms of supply, actually for a lot of the products, actually going to be quite high. For example, we see the cobalt, which is one of the things that I said is a bit less positive. Over the next decade, we're seeing the recycling rate could potentially go up to all the way up to 45% or so. And lithium, which at the moment is largely and commercial to recycle, are going to increase the recycling rate because of technology advance, etc. And we're expecting that it's going to be about 25% or so in 2034. And of course, nickel, which are largely recyclable in the stainless steel world, is less so in battery, but then again, technology provided and so on, we're expecting that is going to be growing to about 15% or so by 2034. So recycling is going to be key. In a nutshell, the EV market is moving to the next stage. It is still growing at a very strong rate. We're still expecting growth of about 10% or so year on year between now and the next decade. But unfortunately, we're not going to see the 200%, 300% increase again that we saw in the past 5 years or so. Lithium, we're going to continue to see a supply deficit until 2029. And then for cobalt, it's going to be again oversupply. It's going to be prolonged oversupply. It's going to place pressure on prices at least until copper prices come back down. Nickel, the lower prices over the past years have actually chucked a lot of quite a few miners out of the market already, and that is going to support the prices. And finally, recycling is the key for the future. Supply chain is going to be a very important swing supplier for the market. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. C. You completed well in time. So, 3 important outcomes from this. The others who are not into battery recycling can also get insight about that important. Nickel will remain notorious in this sector also. We saw the nickel in LME last year. The demand is going to be 3x in time to come. EV will lead the main user for these batteries, and there will be deficit by 2029 for lithium. So my next speaker for today is Mr. Pratyush Sinha, who will be speaking on battery materials, challenge and opportunities. Welcome, Mr. Pratyush.
Hello everyone. So I will not talk about a lot of graphs because I think Mr. Deng has actually shown a lot of numbers and I don't think I can present anything that's better than that. There will be a few graphs, but I'll mostly talk about the industry, the key challenges and key opportunities. I'll take a couple of slides to talk about our company, but I'll try to rush through that. So we're called Loham. We are a critical minerals refiner and recycler based in India. We essentially are an R4 recycler in India, which means we can process all kinds of metals that go into batteries. We have a bunch of factories in India and some plants outside India as well. Now, I'd like to keep this a bit interactive. So there's a question for the audience first. When was lithium discovered? Can anyone take a guess? Broadly, which century, if you want to guess? You can raise your arms. No guesses? There'll be a few other such questions. Okay, I see a hand raised.
It is 2567 BC.
No.
1800s.
Yeah, so it was discovered in 1817 and it was discovered in Sweden by a chemist called Johann August Offertson. So it's barely 200 years old. That it's only been 200 years since we've known about lithium, and today it's suddenly become a very important metal. So not a lot of such metals, but this is how the world works. Now let's talk about battery materials. The topic of the discussion today is battery materials, challenges and opportunities. So when we talk about battery materials, these are the ones we typically refer to, although there are other materials that are used in batteries and that might become more important as battery technology evolves. But you have lithium, you have nickel, you have cobalt, you have graphite, you have then copper, which is obviously sort of a proxy for the modern age. Any material uses copper. And then you have aluminium, zinc and titanium in some of the technologies being used. Battery materials also refers to some of the products that go into batteries directly, which can include precursors and cathode active materials. At least as per the US government and IRA, this is how battery materials are categorized. So just wanted to say that people can often use these terms interchangeably. Now, why are battery materials interesting? So I'll first talk about India and then I'll talk about the global opportunity. In India, according to Niti Aayog, the government's think tank, almost 600 gigawatt hours of batteries are expected to come online. This is a stock number, not an annual number. So between 2022 to 2030, and for all we know, this number might even, we might even surpass this number because the government has a target of 400 gigawatt hours of battery energy storage for solar. So this number might already be surpassed in some ways. Largely coming from electric vehicles, but storage becoming a more and more important area of concern for batteries. Again, EV batteries, and while Mr. Ling talked about the fact that EVs might not grow as they were growing till a couple of years back, India EV story is still taking root. So we will see a accelerated growth, especially in four-wheelers where the penetration is very, very low and probably because of the charging infra. But as that happens, there will be a significant growth in the volume of EVs being sold, at least at a gigawatt hour level, because EV batteries have, four-wheeler batteries have much larger batteries compared to two-wheelers, although the number of batteries being sold as two-wheelers is much higher. Apart from this, India also plans to get into cell manufacturing. So again, as per announcements so far by all the players in the market, we expect around 200 gigawatt hours of cell production to come online by 2030. Now, not all of this might be realized, but with confidence we can say that almost 100 gigawatt hours will come online, 70 to 100 gigawatt hours will come online by 2030. And this is relevant because this will, the cell manufacturing industry will be a very large consumer of these battery materials, and it will also be a large source of feedstock because there will be a lot of cell production waste, and lithium-ion cell production is a notoriously wasteful process. In the initial years, your scrap rates can be as high as 40-50%. Even large-scale plants that have stabilized have scrap rates of 5%. So you can expect significant waste coming from this industry. In India, apart from this, there's also some government schemes. Most famously the profit-linked incentive scheme that the government has come up with, where there is a domestic value addition requirement of around 60%, and that cannot be met without having domestically sourced raw materials. So recycling becomes even more interesting there. Now coming to the global numbers, again, you'll see a bunch of different estimates by different organizations. We've gone with the McKinsey numbers because they seem to be somewhere in the middle, not too optimistic and not too pessimistic. But you'll have around 5 terawatt hours of batteries coming online by 2030, or that's at least the capacities that have been announced and look realizable. This will amount to almost 2.5 million tons of 25 million tons of batteries, material actually, if you include all plastic, aluminum, copper, everything, which is a huge number. And even if you assume 10% of that is scrap, during production, that's a pretty huge number that you're looking at, and you'll need to recycle all of that, which is in addition to the batteries that will be reaching end of life. In terms of material, I think Mr. Ling had already covered this, but just so what we think, at least nickel and lithium, there is a high chance that there will be a deficit. For cobalt and manganese, not so much, and to meet this deficit, there will be a requirement for recycled material to come online as well. Okay, this was the last graph in the presentation, so you don't have to worry about graphs anymore, but I will ask a question again. When was lithium first used in a battery? And bonus points if you can answer who used it as well. Anyone? 1991 is not the right answer, although Sony came up with the first commercial lithium-ion battery around then.
It was around 1986-87 by Akira.
No. No. So the answer might surprise people, but the answer is actually 1907. And this was by Thomas Edison. So he had patented a nickel iron battery, and he actually put in some lithium in the electrolyte, which improved the performance of the battery by around 4% or so is what was recorded. But unfortunately that battery had the tendency to produce hydrogen for some reason, and it could not be commercialized. But yeah, I mean, today hydrogen has become important, so probably that technology will come back. Although nickel iron batteries are coming back, they're becoming quite popular. So I'll quickly talk about the challenges that face the industry. The first challenge is obviously the price volatility. Over the last 1 year, we have seen prices price for lithium come down by almost 80%. It becomes very difficult for recyclers to operate in such an environment. The second challenge is feedstock concentration and capacity concentration. So, and because of which recyclers in India or in other parts of the world where feedstock is not readily available need to figure out ways to get access to these feedstock. Third is geopolitics, where even though there is concentration, there's also trade barriers being put in, and that further complicates issues in accessing feedstock or accessing markets. And then there's the ever-evolving technological landscape, where today we are talking about NMC or LFP batteries. Tomorrow you might have LMFP batteries or lithium-sulfur batteries or sodium-ion batteries or solid-state batteries of different kinds using ceramics and whatnot. And there might also be aluminum-air batteries, which are somewhat superior to the kind of lithium-ion batteries you have today, but not to theoretical lithium-ion batteries. So because of which the material mix keeps changing. Lithium largely stays a constant in most of these because it's the lightest metal and because it has the highest energy density. But a lot of the other materials change. So you need to plan your capacities accordingly if you're thinking of the long term. So, and then there's the environmental aspect to all of this. Okay, now I'll talk about the opportunities. Before that, there was a question, but I don't think I have a lot of time. So, the first lithium-ion battery was fabricated in around 1970s by Sir Stan Whittingham. He was working at ExxonMobil, and then it was commercialized by Sony in the 1990s. To summarize, these were the challenges. but these are also all opportunities. Essentially, prices today are at an all-time low, so they can only go up. So it might be a good time to enter now. There might be geopolitical risks and supply risks, but we are in an interesting area, what's called Altasia by The Economist, and we trade with everyone. So, which means that we can sort of bridge that area, whether you are in Thailand or India or any of the other countries nearby. Since the technology mix is changing, incumbents cannot be entrenched. There's an opportunity for new players to come in. It also means there will be innovation constantly. And then environmental impact will be addressed through recycling, and that's where recycling comes into the picture. There are strict targets for recyclers both in India and EU, and we expect there to be a premium for recycled material to come in as well from 27 or 28 whenever the regulations kick in. So that would be an added incentive for the recyclers. I think this was it from my side. Would be happy to take any questions offline. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratush. You made your presentation very simple. So there are two key takeaways from this. One, when we understand about this particular industry, we are the people who talk in tonnage, steel, so many million tons. But when it comes to lithium and batteries, we don't understand because the data mostly come in terms of gigawatt hour, something like that. So one thumb rule I derived from this, that somewhere around, if capacity is 1 gigawatt hour, that means somewhere around 50,000 tons of battery materials. So we can calculate the market size. Second, for Amar Singh to note, we'll have a quiz in our next IMRC, and I'll ask Sanjay Bhai to announce at least 1 million rupees worth of prizes throughout the 3-day session in January 2025. So my next speaker, Mr. William Gu, he will speak on China lithium-ion battery recycling. Welcome.
Thank you very much. And personally, thank you so much. I need to say a grateful thanks for Mr. Pramo for the very nice invitation. Actually, it's personally the first time to attend the MRAI's event. And at the same time, I'm also very happy and glad to see that some of our peers like Argus Media and Fast Markets just stayed in the same room and talk about the lithium battery and even for the lead acid batteries. So today's topic, I'll just mainly focus on the China lithium battery recycling. And here, I strongly believe that this is the way to the global, whether for the China and the global, to the carbon neutrality, our main purpose. So the first part, I will just do a roughly market understanding. Okay, so we just open the book and I'll tell you about what kind of story just is happening in China's market. So firstly, let's talk about the product formation. So we just see the picture about it's a flow chart regarding to the battery scrap, how it is generated and then get back to the battery loop. So we can see that from the PCAM and the CAM side and overall the whole production line, when we just produce the electric vehicles or the lithium-ion batteries, we can see that lots of production waste. We can see the PR or PCR just generated during production line. And then after the lithium battery being manufactured into the vehicle after the OEM, so we can see that lots, and we are seeing more and more much higher volume of whether for the NCM or the LFP, the wasted, which is end of life battery, just entering into the market. So this picture just showed about the market trend about the not only for the China but also for the global market about the NCM and LFP, the market trend about. Okay, so how much volume there will be in the high space growth in the next 10 years. So we can see that China leads the end-of-life market with LFP recycling surging before the 2030, especially before the 2025. And globally, NCM recycling will take the majority by 2040 after more and more production projects or expansion projects just after announcement in the recent 2 to 3 years. So let's just focus on some of I can say key data points I want to emphasize. The first one is about the global LFP, the CAGR, the increase ratio between 2022 to 2025 is about 33%. However, the CAGR of China LFP, so between these 3 years, is only take charge of 28%. And we can see that during 2022 to 2025, China will just lead the growth with NCM scrap. Since we can see that start from 2021, the LFP, more and more China local car makers just use the LFP to replace the original NCM batteries. And this picture just shows a trading flow in the global market, especially we emphasize about the black mass as one of the raw materials of the end-of-life batteries. So we can see that in China's market, the total output in 2023 is about 220 kilotons and accounts for 65% of the world's total. And regarding to the United States and European market, which charge only 14% and 10% respectively. And we can see that we just mark the red line around the China mainland. The main reason should be that because we are just suffering a very strict policy just to prohibit us to doing such kind of importing and exporting of all kinds of wasted materials, not only for the base metals, but also the same story in the wasted batteries. Here is a demonstration on what kind of economies we are just doing for example, the pricing or their production volumes, their daily information collection. So we collected the data start from the mining sector and then to the battery materials, then to the battery, OEM and recycling. And in the next few pages, I will just show you some kinds of business models they are experiencing and they are doing in the current 5 years. So let's just start it from the sourcing channel. We can see that China end-of-life battery recycling will gradually become the mainstream and rising from 45% in 2022 to over the 60% in 2025. So overall speaking, we have two kinds of solutions, mainstream solutions. So when we collected the end-of-life batteries, the first one is the production waste sourcing channel. So we collect the wasted from the lithium battery companies along with the OEM and CAM companies. And the second main part should be the end-of-life battery sourcing channel from the NEV OEMs and some commercial vehicle operators. So when we see the flow chart, so after they are collected the wasted or end-of-life batteries or wasted productions, after the inspection, some of them will just flow into the disassembling recycling, which means normally to produce the black mass, then get into the metallurgical process. However, so I remember that the second usage should be a very hot topic maybe 2 years ago. But however, after some, we just suffered lots of safety issues, not only in China, I believe, maybe in the global market. So second usage of used, I can see second hand of lithium battery will just get into the low down pace and much lower than our expectation around two years ago. So this picture just shows macro policies regarding to China policies. This is MRAI whitelist paper. Overall speaking, start from 2021, the China MRAI department just launched in totally 5 batches of whitelist companies, which can legally to produce and process the end-of-life batteries. However, when we just calculate the total number of recycled companies in whitelist, we only account for 151 companies which have the illegal certification. But more than 50,000 of the companies are just they don't have the the legal issue or certification to doing metallurgical and do the dismantling of end-of-life batteries. And we can see that some of very famous, we can see the top tier players that in China is about like Huayou Kobo, the GEM, Bromp, and Guanghua Tech. So this picture is just I mentioned about the regarding to the business model about the leading China lithium battery recycling company, how they're just operating their battery recycling businesses. We can see the Model A is just for the Bromp. Bromp is one of the subsidies of CATL and take the position of to produce the PCAM and CAM for the CATL batteries. And we can see Bromp just take charge of the waste pre-treatment and smelting, and then to produce the CAM and then flow back to the CATL supply chain directly. So under this process, they have an MOU with BMW Group. So Model B is regarding to Huayou Recycling, a very similar story to Bromp. One of the, we can see the famous, actually the biggest, as so far has been the biggest recyclers in China is about GEM. GEM is the most integrated recyclers that in China, especially in the lithium batteries, because they just to widely outsource. Despite of the end of life batteries, they will also to source the nickel sulfate, the cobalt sulfate, and lithium carbonate to produce the PCAM and CAM directly, and then sell to their wide range of customers. So this just shows about the profitability, about its overall calculation about the average level, about the profit margin of all of the Chinese recyclers. We can see that in 2022, we just see the battery scrap collection. Their profit margin have over 8% of during their production. However, maybe just 2 to 3 years later, when we do the estimation to 2025, their margin share will only account for around 6%. And regarding to black mass production and salt production, I think the salt production should be the better one, which can account for which can steal only over 10% of profit margin. So we know that when I just talk about more and more clients than the MRAI events. So in the non-ferrous scrap market, so most of you will use the fixed price as your settlement price. But however, the story has been changed in China over the past years regarding to lithium battery recycling. So most of them will do a very complicated formula calculation when they just whether for their raw material sourcing and their production sales, they will use different, just like fast markets or BMI or SMMs, nickel sulfate or lithium carbonate prices as a benchmark, then to multiply as the coefficient to calculate the final settlement price. The following pages will just to show about some of the certification or some cooperation between SMM and the Chinese or global clients. So let's just quickly to look through the next few pages. So we are, despite of the public, we can see the report, the price reporting. We are also doing some consultancy and market research doing the non-ferrous and ferrous metals market. And in the battery recycling technology, we have overall have a 3 technology routine. And because of the time limitation, so maybe if you have any specific questions, you can just send me an email or just raise up the questions. Yeah. So the last few pages is just to represent, okay, how we just track on the carbon footprint during the whole process when we produce the recycled materials. It is not. It is very relative to the LCA assessment. Especially when you have the production, you want to export to the European and United States market. Yeah. So So I'm sorry for that because I just over the time. So if you have any questions, we can just to leave that maybe after the panel discussion, or you can raise up the question to me directly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. William. So three input from his presentation. One, this industry will be growing with a CAGR of more than 35 to 40% CAGR. And again, as in other matters, here also China will lead the game, over 50 to 60% recycling. And third, the second use of this battery will, again, what he mentioned, that there are chances that it may not be used because of some fire issues or safety issues. So the availability of raw material will, what we are estimating by 2027-28, it may come early as well. So now we'll move to our next part. So we'll be having Q&A from our panelists. So before we take some questions from the audience, so I'll start first. Let me have few insights from each of our panelists in their key area. So I'll first ask Mr. Ashish Bansal. So would like to know about the growth of lead, the global demand. What I found in last 1 year, particularly from Korea, the demand was lower. So what was the reason of this low demand for lead, and what is your forecast for 24-25?
Good afternoon. So, if you look at the global lead production, currently lies around close to 13 million tons, and the last year's consumption was in the range of 11.6 to 12 million tons. And there was a supply was exceeded by almost 92k tons, with inventories lying at various warehouses and various ports, close to 450k tons. Specifically, if you see the overall Southeast Asia, the overall Asian demand for batteries, for lead was pretty muted in 2023, and so was with South Korea. South Korea's consumption is generally in the range of 630k to 650k. But looking into 2024 now, the situation is little better due to the increase in exports to various regions, like the Middle East and other regions. Going forward, if you look at 2025, we expect it to be slightly on the positive side, but also another factor to see is that a lot of facilities, metal manufacturing facilities coming up in other parts of Southeast Asia like Vietnam, Malaysia and all of that. So that is going to impact the South Korean market. We'll have to wait and watch.
Okay, thank you, Ashish. So we foresee good time ahead in Q2, Q3, Q4. So my next question will be Mr. William Gu. So there was a news that China is facing shortage of lead. Is that true? And how they are going to fulfill this demand? Either they will import lead, because in past they were never the importer of lead. They either import concentrate or other raw materials only.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Exactly. I think it's true for that. Under the current situation, China's lead market is under sharply increased. Where we just to review the first half of 2024 of the lithium ingot, whether for the primary lead and the secondary lead ingot market. So I just sort out some of the key. I can see the key data regarding to the production, the profit margin, along with their market prices. Start from the January of this year. So start from 2024, the January, the primary lead along with the secondary lead, their market prices just soared from around 15,000 to the 19,000 RMB per ton. Just increased about 24% to 25%. Yeah, over the past 6 months. And along with that, we can see, overall speaking, the biggest problem we currently are suffering is about a great shortage of the raw material. When we just talk about the supply side of the lead market, so we have two main raw materials of the lead ingot. The first one is about the lead concentrate, and the second one is about the recycled lead acid battery. And because we just found it over the past 3 years, so there is more and more projects of the primary lead smelting projects just announced. So in totally the accumulation of expansion plan for the primary lead ingot is over 1 million, per each year. So I think that is why. So from the mining sector, so we're just lacking of the raw materials. And the same picture about regarding to wasted lead acid battery is about when we just look back on the price, very similar to the lead ingot. So they just stored over 25% of the market price start from this year. And because of the low, very low production, we can see the production ratio, the operation ratio of the secondary lead ingot producers. So they are just it's harder and harder for them to just sort outside, and especially in China, because the same story, we cannot to import any kinds of wasted production from the overseas market. That should be I think the biggest problem.
Thank you. So if this is true, there is a tip for the exporter. The price, what he told, is around 19,200 RMB. After reducing the VAT of 13% and the other costs, it comes out somewhere around $20 to $50 ton CIF, Ningbo or Shanghai port. So as of LME is 2015, you can earn that premium from your side. Okay, thank you. So my next question on the lead side to Mr. Vinay. So see, India is net import of lead and also net import of lead-based raw material. Currently, there is a regulation, Battery Waste Management Rule 2022. So how do you see the landscape in time to come about the local raw material availability to the smelters?
Good afternoon, everyone. A very simple answer for this question. See, unlike my co-panelists, figure it out that, China has, a shortage of material. India has also a shortage of material. We generate around 1.3 million tons of battery waste. And the system is that in India it's all going to the unorganized market. It's not going into the organized market. So the responsibility from the government, the taxations from the government, the ERP rules from the government, the responsibility for the big producers of the battery should be decided, and it should go to our organized sector, to a responsible recycling. Until unless it is not done, India has to import. India will be importing, heavily dependent upon that. And as an Indian recyclers, we want favorable policies which government can be decided in battery waste management.
Thank you, Vinay. So my next question on the lithium ion side with Mr. Lee Allen. Can you have the expertise on the overall movement of lithium battery materials, particular black mass. Can you give some idea about how is the availability of this black mass and what are the geography which are generating, where it is being processed? Some input on that. On other side, how one can do the price discovery of these materials and where they can have them?
Thank you very much for the questions, Mr. Sharma. So this industry is the future. As we know it at the moment, we're seeing enormous increases in EV battery demand coming in the next few years. And the fact is that there is not going to be enough mined resources to meet this sort of demand. Also for ESG considerations, CO2 considerations, and foreign entity of concern considerations in jurisdictions like the US, recycling is going to become more and more important. Getting the supply of black mass right now is a concern and will probably continue to be in the Asian regions where there is capacity to consume it. Not only in China, as we heard from that excellent presentation from Edward just now, but also in South Korea, where capacity to consume black mass and recover recycled metal salt from that have been increasing exponentially in the last 2 years. So we're very much seeing the trade flow going from the west to the east when it comes to black mass. And that is because in Europe and the US at the moment, there is roughly around 10 times as much shredding capacity to turn scrap batteries into black mass as there is for capacity to turn black mass into recycled salts. When it comes to the pricing side, we at Fast Markets for the last year and a bit now have been pricing CIF Korea, CIF Southeast Asia and Ex-Works Europe black mass payables. So now people can track the value of the black mass in these markets. And we are seeing very interesting volatile trends actually taking place in markets like South Korea. Just to give one example, because of the upbuilding capacity in Korea, we saw a spike in the payables about 2 months ago, and people were paying much higher payables for NCM and also LCO black mass. However, in the last few weeks, as we've seen, lithium prices have tanked again, nickel has come right down on the LME, and cobalt is also faring poorly too. What that has led to is a drop in the payables because the sentiment in these markets has reduced, even if capacity still needs supply in areas like South Korea. Southeast Asia has been even more affected because it is directly disadvantaged by Chinese lithium demands, which has obviously taken a further hit recently with the new EV tariffs on Chinese vehicles in Europe and the US. So long story short, the fast markets are providing price transparency on black mass payables, but this is going to be a market which develops enormously in the next few years, particularly in areas like Southeast Asia and India, where more capacity will come online to produce recycled metal salts.
Thank you. So hope those who have already your subscription of fast market, this added advantage will be given with discounted cost, I believe, or it is part of the same package?
Currently, they are available in our base metals, minor metals, and industrial minerals packages. So, anyway, feel free to come and talk to me, and I can help if anyone wants any advice on that.
Thanks. My next question to Mr. Pratish Sinha. I would like to know the global recycling capacity in case of lithium-ion battery. And when we talk about the global capacity and what is the Asian capacity and Indian capacity, when we talk about the capacity, that means this R4 capacity or R1 capacity, or how it is defined in this?
Good question. So, I hope you can hear me. So, what we have seen is that both in US and Europe, the amount of scrap that is available is somewhere of the order of magnitude of 100,000 tons, maybe slightly higher in Europe from what we understand. The recycling capacity, based on the projections, I think this year the capacities were supposed to surpass the actual waste, but I don't think that is going to happen because a lot of the capacities are not coming online. And as Mr. Allen mentioned, a lot of this capacity is actually shredding capacity. So what we have seen, and I will corroborate what he mentioned, that a lot of the recyclers who have announced capacities are still shipping the black mass to Asia, maybe to India, but also to Korea and other geographies. And I think that will be the case for the foreseeable future, at least in Europe, because the costs simply seem to be too high to refine the material at this point of time. I think the overall refining capacity in Europe, the claimed refining capacity in Europe are around 60,000 tons, out of which there is Northvolt, Umicore, and these are the two big ones. But again, I don't think a lot of the capacity is actually getting utilized because we see a lot of material actually coming from there. And based on the projections, by 2030, there's supposed to be significant overcapacity. And when by 2035 they'll again be under capacity if no more factories come in, but it's yet to be seen whether refining can actually take place in US and Europe. Europe particularly, US might still be able to do it because of the IRA benefits.
Thank you. So my next question to Mr. Chin. So where stands the Chinese lithium-ion battery recycling? When we talk about the secondary materials used in the new cell battery, so there is a very important factor of the quality of this material. So are they able to utilize what percentage of secondary material into new cell manufacturing in case of China, or they are still dependent more on the primary production or virgin production?
Thank you. That's a good question. I think China, let alone China, to me, I think China is probably the most advanced in terms of recycling lithium-ion battery comparing to Europe or the US, which are sort of like the two markets that are also following China. So I do expect that China is going to, the recycling rate is probably in China is going to be slightly higher compared to Europe and the US over the next decade as we see the recycling rate globally continue to grow. But I do think one of the problems with China is we will be looking at feedstock. Will China have enough feedstock to actually feed that growing capacity or recycling capacity in China? I think one of the issues, as William said earlier, is that China, you're not allowed to import black mass or recycling waste or actually any kind of waste in China to China. So that actually may limit they actually may limit the recycling availability or the capacity in China to do so. It actually is one of the problems of the recycling world, the global recycling industry. I think we talk about, in the steel market and another non-ferrous market. I think when a lot of people talk to, about a European waste regulation shipment, I think a lot of people talk about, it's about renaming the product. It's a raw material, it's not waste. As we see that a lot of countries are, have come out and said that they don't want to import waste, but to us that we know that they are not waste. So it's something that the industry needs to work together on.
Thank you. So I think we can take few questions as well. We have completed this Valentine, only 23 seconds extra we took. Well, good. So we can take 2-3 questions. Sir, mic please.
Thank you, Moderator sir. As we have come to know, and we are knowing itself, that lead ore concentrate is widely used in China. And I have also information that the countries in Africa and some other countries which are making few quantities of concentrate, they are only able to export to China. India also being a big consumer of lead requirement to make batteries. And as we have been talking about that we are facing the raw material problem. So I want to understand that what is the reason that in Indian territory we are not using the concentrate as a basic raw material to manufacture batteries.
Will you take? Should I? Okay. So the primary production of lead mostly takes place with zinc. It's a byproduct of zinc production. So when you will find whenever the zinc prices go so high, there is a more extraction of zinc. So parallelly, byproduct lead is also being generated, and that brings price down. And the cost of primary production is it's certainly higher than this. And battery is the one which has the highest recycling rate among any FMCG product. So availability of that material is enough. You need primary material only for the growth in the industry or whatever material you lose when you recycle. So whether it's China or any part of the world, 65 to 70% recycled material is used for battery manufacturing. So India is doing that only, and India uses, I think, 85%.
85. And it's more feasible. It's more feasible.
I agree, it's more feasible. But as a recycler, I understand that we are importing a lot of batteries also, and we are always in demand of batteries, scrap batteries, to maintain our production level. In that case, if some concentrate is added to that, and if it is also being imported, it can facilitate the quantity of the recyclers, and the stress on battery scrap can be bit less. So my basic question still remains.
Okay. So that concentrate cannot be processed in the secondary production. These facilities are not made for that.
Yes.
That's not one.
Yes. Now that was my question. That if we are competing in the technology for everything like a product like lithium, why not our country is developing the technology for using lead concentrate, so it can be a viable raw material time to time and put less stress on the battery scrap, and more lead can be produced, battery can be produced, and batteries can be exported also in comparison to the China, who are capturing almost all the world where batteries are not being manufactured.
So that's a different thing, because the viability of producing at a low capex is tough. When you need a bigger capex. So, and there is a liability, you have to produce whatever is being generated, and the way Indian lead battery industry is growing, so you need to first process them, then only you will process concentrate. Okay.
Now my second question is that how do you see the future of lead acid batteries for using in vehicles or startup against the EVs, whether they are also going to be replaced with the lithium batteries in coming future?
It will continue for at least for a decade, because the per capita income of the India is growing. So the usage of uninterrupted power at household will shift. The more lead acid battery will go there. And in also EV there is small lead acid battery for run the other ancillaries. And still the play between EV and IC engine is still going on. And if we but to talk about India, everything will go in tandem. There will be auto, EV, Mercedes, rickshaw, everything. So we are safe for at least 10 years. Thank you. So no more questions. So we wrap up this round.
ठीक है चलेगा.
Okay.
The recycle black mass.
ऑडियंस हाँ एक मिनट रुक जा रहा
batteries as it is, or
एक सेकंड पास आया
what I understood in case of graphite, it loses significant properties and cannot be used. So there are you ultimately from the black mass you take the lithium cobalt out as salts.
आइसो कम करना पड़ेगा, चालू मत कर. आइसो कम
in the case of nickel and cobalt, and as hydroxide of carbonate in the case of lithium. This then is converted into precursor material and then a cathode active material. It is the cathode active material which is used in cell production. So there are two stages, but the raw material comes out of the black mass. There is a new technology around direct recycling, which a lot of companies are working on. We also have a line in India on that, where you can, from the cathode, from the black mass, you can recover the cathode active material directly. This technology is more useful when you have a uniform feedstock. So typically when you are located with a gigafactory and you are processing factory waste, or in the case of LFP, where the variation in the stoichiometry is not very significant. So I mean, in the case of NMC, you have 811, 622, so it's difficult to have a feedstock uniform output. But if you have a uniform input, you can have a uniform output. So for LFP and for production waste, you can have direct recycling as well. Probably 5 years away from true scale production because volumes are not enough. But and otherwise, you separate the metals out and combine them back into a cathode active material.
Thank you.
I just had one
more question.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Sharma, I just had just one more question that I had just for William. Great presentation. Thank you for that. I wanted to ask you about you were saying about China, the import restrictions. We hear constant rumours that that's going to change at some point. The other day people were saying, oh, there's going to be a white list and people, be able to start importing. We heard at a conference, I think in Guangzhou a few months ago, that there was trials of black powder imports into China taking place legally. So do you think this is actually going to happen at some point, that the black powder or black mass will be legally allowed to be imported en masse to China?
Well, it depends on the base of the government. The government, some of the, from our national management team to just give an official announcement. Because 2 years ago, we have already generated a specific HS code to regarding to the black mass. However, regarding to these HS code, which doesn't contain any specific specifications regarding to the metal content for each kind of metals. At that time, I remember, so because we know that under most of the black mass will just contain the lithium content, but regarding to that HS code, it doesn't contain the lithium metal. So we hopefully that we estimate that maybe before 2025, we can just officially to announce that we can just import the black mass from the overseas market. Because I agree with you, just your presentation just now is about currently the annual, after our calculation, the currently operation rate of lithium battery recyclers in China to last year is under 50% of operation rate. It's a very low because most of the recyclers are just suffering the loss. Yeah, especially after the downwards of the lithium carbonate prices from the peak. than to current 100,000 RMB per ton at this price level. Yeah.
Recently I was at a conference and somebody said nobody is making money in this market apart from the Chinese. And then I said this to one of my colleagues and she said, I think not even the Chinese now are making money.
So the last question from the audience. Okay, please.
एक मिनट को कट कर मेरा कट कर हाँ एक मिनट आईसो बढ़ाने दे
Scrap, but the scrap batteries are going
to
the unorganized sector rather than going to the organized sector. So my question was that who does the burden lies on to collect the scrap batteries? Like, does it lie on the government or does it lie on the company itself? And if it lies on the company, then where does it leave the resellers basically?
So, if according to the battery waste management rule, there's some penalties, there are some responsibilities that's been imposed by the government to collect the battery and goes to the to any recycling, the circularity has to be there. The circle has to be complete. Otherwise, if the circle is not complete, then we end up in landfill or maybe in upscaling or downscaling. So, apart from EPR, extended producer's responsibility, battery waste management rule, these has been responsibilities has been laid by the government to the battery manufacturers for the batteries to go to a organized sector. If it goes to the organized sector, the proper taxations will be there, responsible recycling will be there, the battery material will come back to the battery, and so that's how we know the import.
Vinay, to sum up, the responsibility lies on the producers. The definition of producers is manufacturers, importer, brand owner. So they come under a producer under battery waste management rule 2022. Thank you. So thank you, panelists. Nice presentation, good discussions. So I'd like to invite Sanjay Bhai to give trophy to our panelists, to Ashish and
चले गए
to William. So I would like to call Gopal Gupta ji, Director MRAI, to give mementos to Vinay and Pratyush, and also join Dhaval Bhai. Vinay Sharan. Gopal ji to Pratyush. And Dhaval Bhai, please join to Lee Allen and change it. Gopal ji, please stay for the group photograph as well. And to Mr. Chen.
Ashish ji to Naveen ji. Please come in the center. Now have a group.
Thank you everyone for joining the session. Okay, so plenary session will start same hall at 10 minutes, next 10 minutes. Thank you.
ओके मैं रुक रहा हूँ कैमरे चालू रखो ऑफ कर दो